everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Medium Next Door, and that's me, Bonnie Page. So happy that you're tuning in today. We're going to talk today a little bit about psychic children. So I write a column for a couple of papers, and people write in, and I get a lot of questions about, is my child psychic, and what do we do if your child is psychic or picking up or having visions? So I'll read you the question that April wrote in saying, I believe I have a child who can see angels and spirits. My son is always looking into the air and laughing. He seems to be entertained. Do you believe children can see spirits or loved ones? And of course, yes, I do. That's very much how I grew up. As you can see, April's talking about a younger child even sitting in their high chair, having these visions or seeing angels or loved ones, probably grandparents that have passed, visiting this child. And children can very much see into the world of heaven, usually about until the age of 7, when they start school and their analytical brain kicks in. So April, yes, I do believe that children and animals can see the spiritual world. So you've seen, a dog sitting there and kind of growling, looking at the corner of the room, or your cat's tail going back and forth, or they're looking all around. They can see the spirit world, and especially children, because they've just come from heaven, right? So they're still so very connected. So if you have a child that's as young as April's child, and they're sitting in their high chair and they're staring away or they're laughing, don't be alarmed. Just know that, they're probably being entertained by the angels or a loved one. So like I said, until the age of 7, when we start first grade, children just have more of a connection to heaven. They've just come from that beautiful place of God and the angels. And then when they start school, a little bit of that starts to diminish because we need to learn math and science. So 2 sides of your brain, the left side of the brain being very creative, while the right side is the creativity, the imagination, magic and wonder, and the left side being your analytical side. And so when you start school, the right side starts to just tone down a little, because now you're here on earth and it's time to learn. So the left side of your brain starts to kick in a little bit stronger. That doesn't mean that all those gifts go away. That just means that you start to take in math and science, which are very hard subjects for people that sometimes are very creative, because they're just 2 different sides there kind of competing and going on. So your left side, math and science, and lots of psychic children have trouble sometimes concentrating even in school. A psychic child is more sensitive. There's a lot of daydreaming going along. So if you remember having some of that going on until you got a little older, it's just because that connection was a little more stronger. So the word psychic actually comes from the Greek word psychos, meaning of the soul. So what this actually means is that we are spiritual souls, and we are able to access and receive information that is beyond our physical body and our five senses. So, being psychic or intuitive, that's that sixth sense that comes up and we can use. And we can use that as well. We can build our own psychic intuitiveness just by building our psychic centers, which are taste, smell, touch, feeling, seeing, right? So it's almost like going to the gym. If you want to build muscles, you go to the gym, you start to build those muscles. If you want to become more psychic or more intuitive, you start to work with your five centers, which has a lot to do with your psychic centers. So your third eye, clear seeing, your ears, clear audience, your solar plexus right here, your sensitivity, your clear sentience. So I know about being a psychic, intuitive child, and even a medium. And the difference between being psychic and being a medium is psychic is more of this world, more earthly things. Psychic abilities are more about you not predicting the future, but being able to see future events that might be happening, or being able to give guidance in career, relationship, love. Being a medium is taking it a step farther and just being able to have those conversations with guides or loved ones in heaven. So that's being the difference. Now, I grew up with my mom being a medium and my grandmother and my great-grandmother, and very much so, a lot of times this gift is inherited. So I remember as a very young girl walking around my parents' house by the age of 4 and actually seeing spirit, not inside my third eye, which is in the middle of your forehead, but outside. So objectively, it's called, walking around our house, and I would follow them and poof to have them disappear. But around the age of 5, I had my first spirit child that became one of my best friends. And so when I was little, I grew up having a little bit of asthma, and the doctor told my mother, well, send her out to play every day for a little while. Even if it's a little cold, bundle her up or send her outside, let her have some fresh air. And I grew up in a very small town of Fitzwilliam, and we were kind of out in the boonies, and it was really just like my mom and me, and my dad, of course, but my mom and myself at home. And she would send me out, and she could look out these front windows at me, but she'd say, go play, go play. And I remember just being a little apprehensive, a little afraid. Oh, I don't want to be outside by myself. But as soon as I would kind of sit and start to play in the garden that was by the front door, there was this cute little girl, and she was a girl in spirit, but to me she just looked like she was my age, and she just looked like she was keeping me company. So she had dark hair to about here, straight bangs going across her forehead. She was very cute. She didn't say a lot, but she would sit and she would play with me, and she would actually stay with me outside until my mother called me in. And she just became like one of my best friends. And so I got used to like going out, and I couldn't wait to go outside because I knew this little girl was going to join me, very much keeping me company. So it comes with the fact fact also that I grew up in a very historical schoolhouse. It was a one-room schoolhouse that my dad bought for my mom, and then it even had outhouses and everything, a girls' room, a boys' room. That was still there when I was growing up. But inside, it was just a one-room schoolhouse, so kind of like a little house on the prairie type of thing. But I remember my dad telling me he bought the house, my mom fell in love with it, and he put in all the rooms and the bathrooms and everything. So inside this framework of this house was the spirit of a lot of children that actually went there every day to learn and played outside. So our home always seemed to have a lot of spirits around on the inside and the outside. But one day, I was just totally surprised. I was sitting with my mom and my sister one day having tea at the table, and I was much older. I mentioned this little girl, and my sister looked at me and said, "Oh, that little girl, she was my friend first." And my mother looked at us and said, "Oh, that little girl, she's still around. She's been here this whole time." So they also got to experience this little girl that really, if I didn't have a medium as a mother, if my mother couldn't see the spirit world or believe, she would have been called my imaginary friend. My gifts then probably would have been pushed down, right? If I didn't have my mother who understood that I could see the spirit world, my gifts would have been pushed down, my self-confidence. I know that I hear from a lot of parents, my child has this imaginary friend. They're having tea around a table. They're 3, they're 4, they're 5. And they just think that it's just them playing. And so when someone says, so-and-so is here with me, they're just like, yep, okay. But really, it's probably a person from spirit. And I know after doing these readings all these years that I know grandparents usually come and really watch out, grandparents that have passed, of course, really watch out for children, young ones that have come onto the earth. And very much before they've come down on earth, I know that they have held them. I've seen that for myself. But if you have a little girl that's having tea, or a little boy walking around talking to someone, a lot of times it's grandparents that have passed before, and they're just entertaining that child for you. So see, they're kind of like babysitters in heaven for you. I think that's pretty cool. So, do you have a sensitive child? A lot of people ask me, how do I know if my child is psychic? Well, if your child usually is able to be entertained by themselves, they don't need to be with you all the time or doing something all the time. They're pretty much feel at home being alone, or they don't have to have the TV on. Sometimes it's because they have that knowing that someone's always with them and they are viewing into heaven or seeing someone from heaven. Your child could be sensitive or psychic, just like April's child. If they're in the high chair and they're laughing and they're cooing, especially a baby that's just born a few months old, if they're kind of looking over there and they're just cracking up, you know that they're being entertained by someone from heaven. And then as your child grows up, so many people that are psychic or mediums are really highly sensitive. They get their feelings hurt easy. They pick up on the energy of others. They might not want to go shopping where there's a lot of people or a lot of noises might bother them. That if they're very highly sensitive, they can be psychic or mediums, you know, seeing and hearing and talking to heaven. If your child picks up the energy on others or yourself, your child walks in the room and says, "Mom, why are you feeling sad today?" Well, that's a highly sensitive person, almost like adults here being empaths, where you feel others' emotions. You can tell if someone's not feeling themselves or they're not feeling well. That's because they're highly sensitive. The other thing that comes with being psychic or a medium, though, is the beautiful part of being creative. If your child likes to sit there and they can do a puzzle, or they like to draw, or how many times has your child drawn a picture and they say, "Well, this is so-and-so," and you're like, "Oh," right? They can be picking up on someone in spirit. I know with me, I had to sleep with a full light on until about the age of 14 because I could feel spirit around me so intensely that I would want the light on. It seemed to keep the vibration lower. I felt safer. I always tell everyone I really couldn't fall asleep well until I heard my dad down the hall snoring away, and then I'm like, "Oh, everything's good." And I'll tell you a little secret. I was afraid of dolls. I still don't like dolls too much, but I just knew that they were going to open up their eyes and walk around. So that might be my creative energy going to work a little bit, but I never liked dolls. And so it makes my family laugh to this day. But if your child has imaginary friends, or they seem to be imaginary, or your child has trouble sleeping at night, just like I did, like having to sleep with a light on, but mine was like a full light. But if your child's like, "Don't shut the door and I need a night light," and they're a little apprehensive, and they might be having something like a vivid dream as well. I know even now, at nighttime is when the spirit world can really come in and talk to you, get messages to you. It's when the veil is its thinnest. So if you have someone that passed before you go to bed and you ask to have a visit or have a dream, and you just ask to remember that dream. But children can have vivid dreams, and they can seem like nightmares even, and they can even see up in heaven, or even a past life that they've just lived. So have some understanding a little bit there for them, because these are the things that can be going on. And also, if your child is asking thought-provoking questions or talking about things that they couldn't possibly know, and that's part of the reincarnation, and that's also talking to, you know, grandparents or loved ones in heaven. My son Trevor, when he was 2 years old, he could tell me all about the Civil War and how this man called Big Daddy would come visit him at night. And my mother would try to say to him, "You're Big Daddy, right? You're Big Daddy." And he'd be like, "No, not my Big Daddy." Like, this was someone from that era. And I know as he got older, more and more things he became aware of, and I know that he was actually in that war, and so it's kind of cool. So reincarnation really happens as well, and sometimes a young person or even we can get flashes of another lifetime that we've lived. So if you have like a fear of water but you don't know why, you could have been in a boating accident or drowned, something to do with water, or a deja vu. You walk into a room and you're like, oh, I've been here before. Or you're vacationing and you totally feel at home and at peace. You could have lived there before. So lots of things to think about. But what can you do to help your child, or even yourself, if you're finding that you have some of these things happening to you? Read books, everything that you can about psychic children or the metaphysical world, so that you're knowledgeable and you know what to do when something happens to you or your child that just can't be explained away. Read YouTube. I have a lot of YouTube videos on there that teach you about the metaphysical world. Watch some YouTube videos. They're out there. And there's just so much to learn about this now. You really need to nurture the child, nurture yourself if you're going through some things like this. Don't discourage them. It pushes the gift down and it makes them feel like they don't belong. And that's not what you want. Everybody belongs here now at this time. And you know, we really need more light workers or more people to become enlightened, that heaven is just not way far up in the sky. God and Jesus, not way up in those clouds, but really just another dimension above us. And the more and more people that are coming forward with, hey, I'm psychic, or, you know, I get premonitions, I know what's going on, or I'm a medium, I have dreams, I can see people, I can have conversations, the less scarier and scarier the world becomes, and also your world, because when you know that you're guided and you're protected and you're loved, the world's not so scary. So if you have a child that's looking and giggling and you know they're seeing angels, or you're not quite sure what they're seeing, but they're having a good time, it's okay. It's okay. So I hope this has helped you today, answer some questions about psychic child, or some things to do with being a medium and what to do with them. Really, knowledge is the key. And if you're older like me, I'm still learning what to do with my gifts, and I still go to classes, and I still watch YouTube. I still train under teachers, and then I just spread the word, because we need to spread the word that dying is not the end. It's just the beginning of our soul going to heaven. It's just the ending of this physical presence at this time. But the two worlds are very much there. And the psychic world is just as important as sometimes getting a message from a loved one, because there are times where we feel like we need guidance here. And it's very important. So if you're feeling like you need to build up those psychic muscles, or you have a highly sensitive child. Just find some compassion there and get some knowledge and just do your best with that. And I have a webpage, bonniepagemedium.com. I'm also on Facebook, Medium Bonnie Page. You can follow me, go on my website. There's lots of information there. So I'm going to leave you with that today. Thank you for tuning in. It was wonderful seeing you all. And until next time, just have a wonderful day. Thanks.